About a third of the Sapulpa Police Department has left the department within the last 18 months. We're going to talk about why that is, what it means for you as a city and as a resident of Sapulpa. So welcome to a new episode of The Time Loop. Well, good morning, everybody. Hope that your Tuesday is off to a good start here. It is going to be decidedly hotter today than it was yesterday. Yesterday was actually a nice break from the triple-digit heat that we got thanks to the thunderstorm that we got that morning. And then, of course, you guys all heard about the tank fire over in Glenpool that thunderstorm led to. And thankfully, we got the notice last night that the fire had been vanquished. And at the time that we last heard, they were in a cool down period. I don't believe that's come back up this morning. So hopefully everything is still looking good over there. I know that when I got up this morning, I looked towards Glenpool, it was nice blue skies again. So anyway, so that yesterday was a pretty eventful day. Had a lot go on yesterday. We had a good city council meeting, and we've got some stories coming out later this week about what we learned at the city council meeting. Today's primary subject, though, is going to be a little bit different. So I want you guys to keep in mind a particular number. The number is 80,000, okay? And the number is 80,000. That is the number of dollars that it costs the city of Sapulpa to train and outfit a new police officer. And $80,000 is what it costs to send them through the academy, get their training, and then every officer it has to have their own uniform, their own vest, badges, everything else. So $80,000 is a lot of money for one particular officer. And at the base starting pay for an officer, it takes about 2 years for them to serve the city before the city technically makes that $80,000 back. And what we're finding out now, thanks to some new information regarding basically an ongoing conversation between the Fraternal Order of Police and the City of Sapulpa, is that officers over 15 have left the department over the last 18 months. And, there's a lot of questions that come to mind when you start to ask that, and not the least of which is why are they leaving? And, when you have about a third of your department that leaves in the course of 18 months, a year and a half, you start to think, well, it can't possibly be just pay. I mean, it's got to be something regarding like maybe the culture, or the leadership, maybe the benefits, and maybe the officers don't like the way they're being treated by the city or at the department. And if you watch the video that we showed at the beginning of the show, that was the recruitment video that officers sent out, and the city of Sapulpa sent out to recruit more police officers not too long ago. And if you watch it, you can see almost all the officers there talk about what a great place Sapulpa is, how great the department is to work for, and how great the leadership is. And so that kind of dispels the idea that there's a culture thing. And according to our conversation with the president of the FOP, it's really not about culture. It really is about pay. So take a look at this, guys. This is the list of officers that have left in the last 18 months. This is not counting 3 that resigned for disciplinary issues, but this is the list of those who left to go to another agency. And most of them were here between 2, 3, and then we had a few that got up into the 5, 6, 7, 8 years, but not very many. And most of them are leaving for a number of reasons. We've got state jobs. That would be OBN, which is Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, OHP, which is the Highway Patrol. And then you've got much larger departments like Tulsa and Bixby and Broken Arrow and Edmond. And then we have a couple of them who decided to even leave law enforcement. And really, when you talk to the FOP, the reason is it is pay. It comes down to pay. So we've got some stats we want to show you. They've showed us quite a bit, and we do have some interesting figures to look at here. So that $80,000 mark when you compound that by, or you multiply that by the number of officers that have left, you're looking at over $1 million that the city has spent in training police officers and outfitting new officers that has walked out the building in the last 18 months. And the FOP has been under negotiation for a new police contract for about the last 2 years, I believe, maybe a little longer than that. And they have yet to reach a resolution. And in fact, last week, the FOP announced that they were entering into interest arbitration with the city to try and get this situation resolved. So let's talk a little bit about what this means. So when we say pay disparity, and when we talk about pay being the reason that the officers are leaving, what does that mean? So how does Sapulpa stack up against other agencies in the area? So let's take a look at that. I've got some good stats that we got from the FOP to show you here. This is the patrolman salary, and if you can't read that there, Sapulpa is third from the bottom, behind Claremore, Coweta, Bixby, Sand Springs, Owasso, Tulsa, and Broken Arrow. This is the patrolman salary, which is where every officer pretty much starts at. And there are multiple levels of patrolman, but we've been told that this is the maxed out patrolman level salary. And so the only two departments that fall behind Sapulpa would be Glenpool and then Jinx. And so, as you can see, Sapulpa is very close to the bottom of that. And we are about 23.52% behind the comparison if you look at surrounding agencies. And then we've also got numbers that are very similar for lieutenant. It is 30.6%. And at that point, Jinx is the only one that's behind us. For captain, which is the next rank up, it is 27.101%, it looks like. And again, Jinx is the only one that's underneath us. And the major, which is the next level up, we are 34.3% below market, according to this chart. And again, Jinx is the only one. So we're like real close to the bottom. And when you look at that right there, the difference between Jinx and Sapulpa is so minimal that Sapulpa might as well just be at the bottom of that one. So when you look at the comparison here, it's all the percentages I said earlier. And what's interesting is it does look like, for the most part, with the exception of lieutenant, the further up you go, the wider that gap gets. And so one thing that people are quick to point out is, it's not really that fair to compare the Sapulpa Police Department with departments like Tulsa and Bixby and Broken Arrow, because they're much larger. Their cities have a lot more resources. So, of course, they're going to be able to afford to pay their officers more, which is correct. And if you remember the list that I showed you earlier in the show, a lot of those officers, they're leaving for larger agencies. Bixby and Broken Arrow. Edmond is actually the state's largest, and then they're leaving for state jobs. And so the question is, why are they leaving to go to bigger agencies to such an extent that they're choosing to leave it all? The fact is that we also have a lot of officers, much of our administration and things like that. They've been here a long time, well over 10 years, 20 years. And so you start to wonder, why is it that the officers are either choosing to stick it out, or they're choosing to go for a bigger agency in order to get a higher pay? So we do have some more numbers for you. Let's look at actually how Sapulpa compares to comparable sized cities. Okay, so this is the patrolman salary. This is what they call a factor 3 survey, where it actually compares Sapulpa to other cities that are close in population, like Yukon, Bethany, Mustang, Del City, Sand Springs, Claremore, Ponca City, things like that. And what you're going to find is that our place in the rank is really not that much different. So compared to all these other cities of a similar size, Sapulpa is still 21.75 behind on a patrolman. And then let's see here, my next one is lieutenant, 23.34%. Again, Jinx is about the only one that's ahead of us there, or behind us rather. Captain's salary, we've got Duncan and Jinx are the only two that fall beneath us. And then major salary, Sapulpa is right near the bottom at 23.27%. And then, of course, the disparity isn't quite as big when you when you take out Tulsa, Bixby, Broken Arrow, but you're still looking at about a 20% or more disparity between our officer pay, maxed out officer pay between Sapulpa and comparable cities of a similar size. So, what are we supposed to take with this? So, well, there's a few things that it means. So, on the one hand, you have to think, okay, what does an officer that works for Sapulpa that's not being paid as much as they could be if they were going to a place like Duncan or Sainsbury's or Glenpool or something like that, what does that mean for us? That means not necessarily it means that Sapulpa is turning into something of a stepping stone agency. That's how the president of the FOP described it. And it didn't used to be the case. 10 years ago or more, Sapulpa was full of officers that enjoyed a long tenure here. And Sapulpa officers apparently do still have great benefits and stuff, but this pay disparity that's happening at the level of each rank at the maxed out level is what is causing these officers to leave. They're able to go to places like Tulsa and Broken Arrow and Bixby and make much more money, in some cases almost twice as much, at the same rank that they would be able to do when they started out here in Sapulpa. So the difference is, and this actually does play into why do we have some officers that stayed a long time, you cannot really very well make a lateral move. So you can't be a captain in Sapulpa and then go be a captain over at another agency. That doesn't really happen that often, is what I've been told. So you do have to know that when you make that move, you are basically starting from the bottom. If you go to work from another agency, you're probably going to start as a patrolman again and then work your way up. Now, maybe you'll be able to work your way up faster if you have more experience. That could be the case, but you are still probably going to have to start at the bottom, which is why these officers are leaving after they only get like 2 or 3 years experience. But it still begs the question, how did the city of Sapulpa deal with the situation of spending $80,000 per officer, well over $1 million now over the last 18 months for all these officers that have walked right out the door? And I mean, Sapulpa really needs to find a way to grow in that ranking there. So there's an ongoing conflict that they're having with the city. It's been going on for 18 months to 2 years now, and they're entering into arbitration. So what did that look like for us? What did that look like for you guys? Basically, what will happen is this: the city will have an arbiter, and then the FOP will have an arbiter, and then they will have a mutual arbiter, a third party arbiter as well. And that'll go through the situation, the arbitration. And at the end of that, two things will happen. Either they will settle with the city, and the city's contract will go into effect. Or if they decide, no, we're going to side with the FOP, then the city gets the option to take it to a vote of the people at that time. And so you guys at that point will learn a lot more about what the city has to say about this. So they've been pretty tight-lipped about it. And it's standard. I mean, when you enter into arbitration, it's standard that you to not talk about it. So all these facts that I got today, they came from the FOP. I do know the city does dispute some of those statistics. They don't think that things are quite being presented and the reality in terms of like an officer take-home pay and how much an officer would actually make during their salary or their annual take-home pay. However, it doesn't stop the idea that we've had a third of the police force leave in the last 18 years. So another thing to think about what this means is the more that this continues to happen, it has a great effect on the morale of the police force. And not only on the idea of, well, what are we doing wrong that we can't keep anybody? But when you have officers that are your field training officers, and that is literally all they are doing is training the next recruit, I mean, it starts to wear on you. It wears you out. You can't really do your regular policing and keeping the community safe anymore because all you're doing is training the new guy. And then you're training the new guy, and you've always got this thought in the back of your mind of, are they going to be here in 3 years, or are they going to leave and go to Bixby, Broken Arrow, Edmond, or take a job with the state? And so you've always got that in the back of your mind. The other thing is that the more inexperienced officers that we have at the Sapulpa Police Department, the worse it is for the city of Sapulpa. And I mean that as a resident. I mean the city, not just City Hall, but the city, the community of Sapulpa is less safe when you have less experienced officers on there. And so when you have these officers, after they get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of experience under their belt, they learn a lot about suspects, the people they have regular regular run-ins in. They learn a lot about their community, where to find people, how to keep people safe. They know things that inexperienced, brand new rookie officers are just not going to have. And so, anyway, so there's going to be more information coming out about this. This is the situation that we're in now. I did want to make one clarifying statement. Saying that a third of the police force is gone does not mean that the police force is currently reduced by a third. Okay, a third of the staff of the police department, a third of the officers in the police department have left within the last 18 months. That's true. However, at this time, there remains about 5 positions that are vacant. There are 5 that are either in academy or they're finishing up their training. Right now, it takes about 9 months to get through that. So it's 9 months of training and academy before you can even become a full-fledged full-time officer where you get your own car and you're out on the street by yourself. Otherwise, you are in field training and you're in the academy and everything else that goes along with that. So even when you hire a new officer, this still takes a good 9 months of training before they become, uh, independent enough to be able to patrol on their own. So something to keep in mind there. So that being the case, even if they were to fill all of these slots tomorrow, it would still, probably take another 9 months to get the department back to a level that it was a few years ago before the officers started leaving. So one thing that I did want to let everybody know from the president of the FOP, Mike Soul, he did tell me that the longer this situation goes on, the harder it's going to be for Sapulpa to keep up. And so I do know the city is exploring different options on how to solve this issue and solve some of the conflict that's happening. And hopefully we will hear about that more in the coming future. So guys, stay tuned to the Sapulpa Times. We'll keep you in the loop on everything that's happening. We've also got some great stories coming out about the Route 66 blowout, new businesses that are moving to town, and some update on some other businesses that you guys might be excited to hear about. So stay in the loop. We will see you guys at the next episode. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. Bye-bye.